All right, everyone. The other day, Nancy Pelosi had a fall, and she apparently fractured her hip, actually, in Luxembourg, over in the Benelux region, which we were literally discussing the other day. Again, memetics is a real thing. This follows in the wake of a few days before. Mitch McConnell, apparently, he was at a lunch with congressional Republicans, and he fell down and he smashed his head on the table, and his hands once again were all like bruised, and he was all fucked up. And I was thinking about geriatric politics. Here's my thoughts. I do not believe in congressional term limits. I said this the other day as well. I believe that if people want to re-elect someone endlessly, even if they're all fucked up like a Strom Thurmond sort of situation, they do have the right to vote for who they believe is best to lead them. If they believe that someone who's 95 years old and basically can't even sit up anymore is the best option, they should be able to vote for them, because let's face it, some of the younger politicians are no better. So I don't believe in congressional term limits in any way, shape, or form, and especially not judicial term limits. If a judge is doing a good job, if people approve of them, and there's some methodology by which they can be removed if they are incapacitated, then I would say it's perfectly fine. However, I would also say when a politician gets to the point where they're falling down repeatedly, they're all messed up, like physically or mentally, and in some cases both, like with Joe Biden, when it's quite clear that they're no longer capable of doing their job, it's really the responsibility of their constituents to oust them. For example, the United States decided to oust Joe Biden. Joe Biden will never see office again. He's sundowning. He's going to go off to the funny farm and wander off into the hinterlands, basically. He's going to put on his cowboy hat, get on his steed, and take that long, slow walk off into the desert, so to speak. And then that's the way that it should be. It's not that he is ineligible for a second term, it's that the American people decided, you're completely messed up, what the hell are you even doing? Kamala Harris. Well, she's not Sundance, she's only 60. I say only 60 because by political standards in D.C., that's relatively young, which is a rather sad thing. You've only got a few people in their 30s in Congress and not that many that are in their 40s. Most of them are 50 plus, and I think this is a problem. But it's one that needs to be addressed by the people. One thing that I've talked about repeatedly over the years is that really it's the responsibility of the civilian population to make these things happen. We don't need more regulations. We don't need more laws. We don't need more constitutional amendments or anything like that. The people themselves can do it. If the politician is clearly fucked up, then you vote them out of office and you force them into retirement. It's the responsibility of the actual constituents, whether it be a congressional district like a House position, state position like the Senate, maybe a judge or something like that. With the judiciary, it's a little bit harder. We don't have this problem with the executive position because, of course, we have presidential term limits. So, you're only allowed to have 2 terms as president. With Congress, you can get elected pretty much endlessly. And in certain states, the gubernatorial position is or is not like in play. In some states, you can run for governor forever, basically, like here in Vermont. In some states, there are term limits, like in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, in which I believe that you have to basically bounce back and forth between being governor and lieutenant governor effectively to maintain your position in the executive capacity. If I remember correctly, I suppose. I think the same is true in Florida. They've got term limits for their governor. With the U.S. Congress, though, and with most state houses, you don't have term limits. I would simply say that the civilian population needs to be more aware of the state of their politicians, their mental state, their physical state. Are they capable of standing? Are they capable of standing without falling over and breaking a hip? Apparently Nancy Pelosi does not pass that sniff test. And then they need to vote accordingly. People have a tendency in most parts of the country to simply re-elect the incumbent. It's generally difficult to knock the incumbent out. That needs to change, but it's their fault. Ultimately, I hate to say it, but it's the population's own fucking fault that this sort of thing is happening. Who was voting for Strom Thurmond when he was approaching 100 goddamn years old and literally couldn't even sign off on a piece of paper? Well, it was the constituents. It's not Strom Thurmond's fault. He simply ran for office. People decided to elect him. I have no particular problem with this. Does it form a problem for our nation? Sometimes, yes it does. You've got, again, Mitch McConnell. He's all messed up. He is barely self-aware at this point. He's sundowning the same way as Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi, years ago, she took a knee for BLM. You remember that when they had like the little African flags or something like that, and a bunch of obviously very white Congress people took the knee and did a moment of silence thing? She couldn't even get up. This was years ago. But the people of California continue to vote for her. They continue to vote her back in office. She's running for office again, by the way, which is hysterical. But it's ultimately the fault of the people within the population that are voting for that individual. If the American people vote for a psychopath for President of the United States, they voted for them. Yeah, I mean, it's everyone else's problem too, including the people that stood against it, but at the same time, technically, it's more or less their fault. If you're in a congressional district and the person running for office is in a wheelchair, half comatose or something like that, but you vote for them anyway, there are two reasons for that. Number one, incumbency, not wanting to rock the boat, or number two, the fact that the opponent is fucking retarded. And this is just sort of the way that it is. So I do not believe in congressional term limits, but I would say there is a geriatricism, so to speak, within our Congress. I think the average age of a person in the Senate is like 65 or something like that. It should probably be less than that. It might be good for the nation if we didn't simply re-elect older people over and over. Some of them, they get in when they're young. Like, let's say, like Anna Luna. I'm a fan of Anna Luna. Everyone knows this. She's in her 30s. She's my age. Let's say she gets re-elected over and over and over again. At some point, she's no longer in her 30s. She's like 65 fucking years old or something like that. At some point, though, the people need to act in order to remove them from office. It's not the government's responsibility to police itself. I mean, we've seen the results of the government policing itself before. It ain't pretty. It's up to us in order to police this sort of thing. That's about all. Peace out.